1940s, Philadelphia was a bustling hub of naval activity. The Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, a sprawling complex at the confluence of the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers, was a hive of construction and repair work for the U.S. Navy's fleet. The Second World War was at its peak, and the shipyard was operating around the clock, employing thousands of workers dedicated to the war effort. It was in this intense atmosphere that one of the most enduring and mysterious legends of modern times was born, the Philadelphia Experiment. The story begins with the USS Eldridge, a Cannon-class destroyer escort, commissioned in August 1943. Named after Lieutenant Commander John Eldridge, Jr., who was killed in action during the Solomon Islands campaign, the ship was designed for escorting convoys and protecting them from enemy submarines and aircraft. However, the Eldridge would become infamous not for its wartime service, but for a series of events that allegedly took place in October 1943. According to the legend, the U.S. Navy was conducting a top-secret experiment at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The goal was to render the USS Eldridge invisible to enemy radar, a project supposedly based on Einstein's unified field theory. The experiment, often referred to as Project Rainbow, was said to involve the use of powerful electromagnetic fields to bend light around the ship, effectively cloaking it from view. The implications of such technology were staggering. It promised a new era of naval warfare, where ships could move undetected by enemy forces. The key figures in this tale are varied and enigmatic. Dr. Franklin Reno, a supposed physicist whose name appears in some accounts but remains largely mysterious, is one such figure. Then there's Carl Meredith Allen, also known as Carlos Miguel Allende, a former merchant marine who claimed to have witnessed the experiment firsthand. Allen's letters to UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup in the 1950s would later reignite interest in the story, adding layers of intrigue and conspiracy. On the day of the experiment, October 28, 1943, the USS Eldridge was reportedly fitted with a series of powerful generators and massive coils. The ship's crew, unaware of the full extent of the experiment, were instructed to stay at their posts. As the generators were activated, a greenish-blue glow enveloped the ship. Witnesses claimed that the Eldridge began to shimmer and then, astonishingly, vanished from sight. For a few minutes, the ship was completely invisible, leaving only a faint outline in the water. But the story doesn't end there. According to some versions, the Eldridge not only became invisible but was also teleported over 200 miles away to the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Virginia. There, it was reportedly seen by the crew of the SS Andrew Furuseth, another ship in the convoy. Moments later, the Eldridge reappeared in Philadelphia, but the consequences were dire. The crew members were found in a state of disarray. Some were embedded in the ship's metal, others were burned, and many suffered severe psychological trauma. Alex Turner, an investigative journalist, had always been fascinated by unsolved mysteries. When he first heard about the Philadelphia experiment, he was intrigued but skeptical. Yet, the more he dug into the story, the more he realized there were too many unanswered questions to ignore. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex began his investigation at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, now a shadow of its former self, repurposed as a mixed-use campus. Alex's first stop was the Naval Inactive Ship Maintenance Facility, where decommissioned ships were stored. Here, he hoped to find some clues about the Eldridge's mysterious voyage. He interviewed former shipyard workers, many of whom were now in their 80s, but their memories were fragmented and faded. However, one name kept coming up: Carl Meredith Allen, also known as Carlos Miguel Allende. Allen had claimed to have witnessed the experiment firsthand and had written a series of letters to UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup in the 1950s, detailing what he had seen. Alex managed to track down one of Allen's surviving relatives, who provided him with copies of the letters. The letters were filled with cryptic references and wild claims, but they hinted at a deeper conspiracy. According to Allen, the experiment had gone horribly wrong, and the government had covered it up to avoid a public outcry. Allen's letters also mentioned a mysterious figure named Dr. Franklin Reno, a supposed physicist who had been involved in the project. As Alex delved deeper, he encountered numerous red herrings. Some sources claimed that the Eldridge had never been in Philadelphia at the time of the experiment, while others insisted that the ship's logs had been falsified. There were also reports of similar experiments being conducted at other naval shipyards, adding to the confusion. Despite these setbacks, Alex pressed on, determined to separate fact from fiction. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence came from a retired naval officer who had served on the USS Eldridge. The officer, who wished to remain anonymous, confirmed that the ship had been part of a classified project, but he refused to divulge any further details. However, he did provide Alex with a lead, a former crew member named James Thompson, who had been deeply affected by the experiment and was now living in a small town in Virginia. Alex made the journey to Virginia, hoping to find Thompson and gain some insight into what had happened that fateful day. When he arrived, he found Thompson living in a modest house, surrounded by old naval memorabilia. Thompson was initially reluctant to talk, but after some persuasion, he agreed to share his story. Thompson recounted the events of October 28, 1943, with a haunted look in his eyes. He described the eerie glow that had enveloped the ship and the sensation of being pulled apart at a molecular level. When the ship reappeared, Thompson found himself embedded in the deck, unable to move. He had been rescued by his fellow crew members, but the experience had left him scarred for life. Thompson also mentioned seeing Dr. Franklin Reno on the ship, overseeing the experiment with a cold, detached demeanor. With Thompson's testimony, Alex felt he was getting closer to the truth, but the more he uncovered, the more questions arose. Who was Dr. Reno, and what was his role in the experiment? Why had the government gone to such lengths to cover up the incident? And most importantly, what had really happened to the USS Eldridge and its crew? Alex's investigation was far from over. He knew he needed to dig deeper, to find more witnesses and gather more evidence. The story of the Philadelphia experiment was a tangled web of secrets and lies, and Alex was determined to unravel it, no matter the cost. As he continued his search, Alex encountered more challenges and complications. Some of the people he interviewed were clearly hiding something, while others seemed genuinely afraid to talk. There were moments of frustration and doubt, but Alex's determination never wavered. He knew that the truth was out there, waiting to be discovered, and he was willing to go to any lengths to find it. The Philadelphia experiment was more than just a legend. It was a mystery that had haunted the naval community for decades. And as Alex Turner delved deeper into its secrets, he realized that he was not just uncovering a story, but also confronting a dark chapter in American history. The truth, he knew, would be stranger and more unsettling than any fiction. With each new piece of evidence, Alex felt the tension mounting. The stakes were high, and the risks were great, but he was driven by a relentless curiosity and a desire for justice. The Philadelphia experiment was not just a tale of invisible ships and teleportation. It was a story of human ambition, scientific hubris, and the unintended consequences of playing with forces beyond our understanding. As Alex prepared for the next phase of his investigation, he knew that he was on the brink of a major breakthrough. The clues were coming together, the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the truth was finally within reach. But with each step forward, the danger increased, and Alex knew that he had to be careful. The Philadelphia experiment was a story that many wanted to keep buried, and uncovering it would not be easy. The journey was far from over, but Alex Turner was ready for whatever lay ahead. The truth was out there, and he was determined to find it, no matter the cost. The Philadelphia experiment was a mystery that demanded to be solved, and Alex was the one to do it. The adventure had only just begun, and the best or the worst was yet to come. The Philadelphia Naval Shipyard had long since quieted from its wartime fervor, but the echoes of its past still lingered in the shadows. Alex Turner, ever the relentless investigator, felt the weight of history pressing down on him as he sifted through the fragments of the Philadelphia experiment. His latest lead, the haunting testimony of James Thompson, had brought him closer to the heart of the mystery, yet it also opened a Pandora's box of questions. Thompson's account of being embedded in the ship's deck was chilling, a vivid reminder of the experiment's catastrophic consequences. But it was the mention of Dr. Franklin Reno that gnawed at Alex's mind. Who was this enigmatic figure, and what role had he played in the ill-fated experiment? The name seemed to be a ghost, flitting through the records without leaving a trace. Determined to uncover more, Alex turned his attention to the Naval inactive ship maintenance facility once more. He hoped that buried within the archives, there might be documentation or correspondence that could shed light on Dr. Reno's involvement. The facility's vast, labyrinthine storage areas were daunting, but Alex's resolve was unshakable. Days turned into nights as Alex pored over old files and declassified reports. The monotony was broken only by the occasional discovery of a tantalizing clue. One such find was a set of blueprints for the USS Eldridge, annotated with cryptic notes and equations. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the technical jargon suggested a deep understanding of electromagnetic theory. Could these be Reno's notes? As Alex examined the blueprints, he noticed a reference to a Project Rainbow test site, distinct from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Intrigued, he cross-referenced this with other documents and discovered a location: an abandoned facility in the remote outskirts of Norfolk, Virginia. It seemed this site had been used for preliminary tests before the main experiment in Philadelphia. With a new sense of urgency, Alex set off for Norfolk. The journey was long and fraught with anticipation. Upon arrival, he found the facility in a state of decay, overgrown with weeds and shrouded in silence. The air was thick with the sense of forgotten secrets. Inside, the facility was a maze of rusted equipment and faded documents. Alex's flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the past. In a dusty corner, he found a box labeled Project Rainbow. Inside were files detailing various tests and experiments conducted under Dr. Reno's supervision. The reports were technical and dense, but one thing was clear: the experiments had been far more extensive and dangerous than previously known. They had involved not just electromagnetic fields but also advanced theories of quantum mechanics and space-time manipulation. The deeper Alex delved, the more he realized the true scale of the experiment. It wasn't just about making the ship invisible. It was about bending the very fabric of reality. The implications were staggering, and the risks were immense. The reports hinted at other tests that had gone awry, with dire consequences for the subjects involved. It was clear that the Philadelphia experiment was not an isolated incident but part of a broader, more sinister project. As Alex pieced together the fragments, he felt a growing sense of dread. The experiments had left a trail of human suffering and scientific hubris. The government's efforts to cover up the truth were not just about national security, but also about hiding the moral and ethical breaches committed in the name of progress. With his findings, Alex returned to Philadelphia, his mind racing with the implications. He knew he was getting closer to the heart of the mystery, but he also knew that the stakes were higher than ever. The truth he sought was dangerous, and there were powerful forces that would stop at nothing to keep it buried. Back in Philadelphia, Alex faced another challenge: the second pinch point. He needed to find more witnesses, more evidence to corroborate his findings. He reached out to other former crew members of the USS Eldridge, hoping to find someone willing to talk. Most were reluctant, still haunted by their experiences and fearful of repercussions. But one man, Robert Jenkins, agreed to meet. Jenkins was a frail, elderly man, his eyes clouded with the weight of years. Alex's persistence paid off. Slowly, Jenkins began to recount his memories of the experiment. He spoke of the fear and confusion among the crew, the strange sensations they felt as the ship vanished and reappeared. He also mentioned seeing Dr. Reno on the ship, overseeing the experiment with an air of cold detachment. Jenkins' testimony was a crucial piece of the puzzle, but it also raised more questions. Why had Dr. Reno been so detached? What had he known that the others didn't? Alex sensed that Reno was the key to understanding the full scope of the experiment, but finding more information about him was proving to be an elusive task. As Alex continued his investigation, he encountered a significant obstacle: The government had sealed many of the records related to the Philadelphia experiment, citing national security concerns. Accessing these files would be nearly impossible without the right connections. Frustrated but undeterred, Alex decided to take a different approach. He reached out to a contact in the media, hoping that public pressure might force the release of some of the documents. The media contact, a seasoned journalist named Linda Hayes, was intrigued by Alex's findings. She agreed to help, and together they began to craft a series of articles exposing the hidden truths of the Philadelphia experiment. The articles garnered significant attention, sparking public interest and debate. The pressure mounted on the government, and eventually, some of the files were declassified. The declassified documents were a treasure trove of information. They confirmed much of what Alex had already discovered and provided new insights into the experiment's scope and objectives. One document in particular stood out, a report written by Dr. Reno himself. In it, Reno detailed the scientific principles behind the experiment and the unexpected consequences that had ensued. His tone was clinical and detached, but the underlying horror was palpable. The report revealed that the experiment had indeed involved bending spacetime, creating a temporary rift that allowed the ship to teleport. However, the process had been unstable, leading to the catastrophic results observed. The crew's disarray, the physical and psychological trauma, they were all side effects of the spacetime distortion. Armed with this new information, Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew he was close to uncovering the full truth, but he also knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger. The forces that had kept this secret hidden for so long would not take kindly to his revelations. As he prepared for the next phase of his investigation, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The tension was palpable, and the stakes had never been higher. The Philadelphia experiment was a story that demanded to be told, and Alex was determined to see it through to the end, no matter the cost.